Hey there, it's Mark from MENWHOBULLET. Thanks so much for checking out today's video where we're going to be doing something a little bit differently. We're not going to be doing a plan with me video this week or anything inside of our bullet journal. We're going to be taking a break and we're going to be having some fun with stamps. Now, a few weeks ago, my fellow design team member from the Archer and Olive design team, Adrienne from Studio 80 Design, she posted this really cool video where she created a mandala using ink and stamps. And I had never thought about doing that before. And I was so blown away that I had to try it myself. So all weekend long, I've been going a bit crazy. I'll show you some of my other designs in just a second. But I thought what I would do is show you how to create this for yourself. Now you could put this inside of your bullet journal if you wanted to. I'm going to use watercolor paper today to set this up, but I want to show you the foundations of how to do this so that you can do it yourself. And I'm really excited to get started. And when we're all done, I want to show you a really cool way that you can take a print like this and put it into a digital form and make it almost into your own coloring page. If you're anything like me, I'm a little bit nervous to add like watercolor or colored pencils to this. So we're going to be using the Pigment app to turn this into a coloring page that you can play with digitally. It's gonna be super fun. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll go through the materials you're going to need. I'll show you how to set up your page so that you can create this circular mandala using stamps. And then at the end, I'll show you how to get it inside of an app that you can color yourself. So as I mentioned, I've been playing around with a lot of this inside of some sketchbooks, and I just wanted to show you real quick some other creations that I made over the weekend with this and with these stamps. And I've gone big and I've even gone even bigger with these. So I'm excited to get started with you today and show you how to create one of these for yourself. For today's project, I'm going to use watercolor paper, but you could also use your bullet journal if you wanted to. I think this would look wonderful in a square journal specifically, but you can use whatever you'd like to try and do this. For the materials for this, all you're going to need is a pencil. We're going to need a ruler because we're going to draw out our square space that we're going to use. I also love this compass. You could use a regular pointy compass, but I love this one because it has all the circles in different sizes on it, and it's really easy to make those circles on your page. We're also going to be using the ink for the stamps. I've been using VersaFine ink recently. It's been working really well for me, and I like it. I'll go ahead and link all of these materials in the descriptions below. And I also need the stamps. So recently I purchased this photo book from Amazon. I'll link this for you too, but it works perfectly for storing all of my stamps. So inside of here, I have all of the new ones from Archer and Olive that just came out with the spring collection, as well as the rest of my collection too. And it's been awesome as a resource to have. So for this theme, what I'm going to use are more botanical florals, call them what you will. So I'm going to go into my stamp book. I'll use these two, which came from the March subscription box. And then this one here is from the spring collection. From Archer and Olive, we have spring, which is the theme of this top one here, and then also florals, which is the second one that's a part of that. All of these you can buy on archerandolive.com, and you can use my discount code MENWHOBULLET10, and that'll save you 10% off your purchase when you get those. Now that everything's cleared off the desk, the first thing that I'm going to do is just grid out this piece of paper to the best of my ability. What I found super helpful is using squares. So this paper is almost 9 inches wide. So I'm just going to mark it down to 7 with a 1-inch border all the way around. The most important part, at least that I found, is working off of a square. It's just making sure that you have all of your lines marked so that you have all of these reference points as you're creating your pattern around the paper. Once I have everything marked out, I'll go ahead and just draw out my 1-inch margins that I'll have around my page here. And then the next thing that I'll do is just find the center of my working space. I'll mark those and just draw the cross across the center here. I need the center point so I can put down my compass and then draw out my circles. So I'm just going to draw out about 1-inch circles all the way around. I use these as reference points as I'm stamping outward from the center. It's super helpful to have these as visual points as you go around, as you'll see when we get started, because this is what's going to keep us on track and keeping this looking really nice as we pattern this out. The first thing that I've been doing is finding an item that I like to have right smack dab in the center. In this case, I'm going to use this gate. I've used this a few times through some of my other examples, as you saw. And for this, it kind of gives off this secret garden vibe, which is really neat. So what I'll do is just lay this down in the center. I'll take my acrylic block, which I didn't mention that we needed before, but you need an acrylic block for these clear stamps. And I'm just gonna lay this right on top of the ink. You can either set it right on top, or I've been told it's better to pat the ink pad to the stamp. I'm just super nervous, honestly, that I'm going to drop the stamp or the ink pad onto my paper. So for today, I'm just going to lay it on top and we'll work that way. Whenever I'm working with stamps, I just like to have a wet paper towel and dry just to get the ink off and dry it off. I was also told by someone recently that baby wipes work really well and they don't leave any of the extra paper towel residue on the stamp. So if you want to try that, by all means, go for it. Once I'm done cleaning off my stamps, I just like to put them back right away. Otherwise, I will be searching all over the place for them. Now, as I start to pick out these florals for this radial design, I like to find ones that have a lot of space or have a lot of detail in them to start things off. So the first one that I'm going to go with here has some like berries out on the end of it, as well as these open leaves, so it'll look really cool. So to set things up, I'll go ahead and ink my stamp, and I'm going to use this innermost circle here on this vertical, and that's where I'm going to lay down the first stamp. Then what I'll do is use that same design and mirror it top and bottom, left and right. I'll go ahead and clean off the stamp since I'm not going to use this one again right now, and I'll put it away, and I'll find the next botanical or floral that I'm going to add to this. One thing I like to do is pay attention to the direction of the stamps as they go. So this one here curves a little bit to the right. So what I want to find is another one that's going to curve a little bit more to the left. And then visually that will start to counter each direction of the others. Now to do this, and I didn't set this up in the beginning, I'm going to draw these cross marks across here so I can line these up on these angles. The way that I'm going to do this is go up to the next radial circle, and I'm going to lay this one right there on the line across those diagonals. I also like to turn my paper as I'm doing this way I'm not reaching across my paper and possibly dragging the stamp ink across. Now I'm going to add some florals. I'm not like a huge floral guy, but inside of this set, I love these because they're nice and bold. They do take up a good amount of space and they fill things really nicely. They're also not perfectly circle, and this is really great as you're working through these spaces because you can move the stamp around a little bit to fit your space as you need it. So to set this up, I'm going to mirror this on each one of these angles. So I'll start here on the bottom left, do the top left, top right, and the bottom right. Inside of this pack, there's also a smaller flower that exists on here too, and I'm going to use that one in the corners of each of these. I think it does a really wonderful job mimicking the larger flower that's on the inside, and then drawing your attention out to each corner. The next one I'm going to go with is this botanical here. I like this one a lot because it has the circles. So far we have a lot of leaves and we have a lot of flowers, and this is a nice one. It does two things. One, adds really cool circles. It also will leave a darker circle versus some of the open leaves that we have, and it also takes up a good amount of space as well. And it starts to fill in that empty white space as we build this out. The first one I'm going to lay down here is going to go just below that second circle, and then the second one I'm going to add, which will be touching the outer circle. Next, I'm going to use this stamp here. This has a cool flower print on it, and I'm going to go out beyond my margin here. What I've been doing is keeping myself inside of these lines to begin, and then as I build out from the center, I start to go outside of my squares a little bit. Now, because I'm going to be going outside of my lines, at least on the top, right, and bottom, they don't have the extra space. I'll use this extra scrap piece of paper where I dropped a stamp on earlier as I was setting this up. So let's go ahead and use that just so we don't get any ink on the table here. I'm going to line these up with the horizontal and vertical lines that I have set up. Now that I have these set up and it's very open and airy, I'm actually going to go with these small flowers here because these will actually print nice dark black. What I like to do, there's two different sizes. I like to size them up first and just lay them on the paper here without any ink to see how they'll work for size. I'm going to go ahead and use the bigger one here as we go around because I think it'll work really well. Okay, so the next one that I'm going to use, I call this the classic archer and olive leaf here. Bonnie is so awesome at drawing these, and I'm so excited that we have these as part of these stamp collections now, because I am not awesome at drawing botanicals. I do an okay job, I'm getting better, but it's really nice to have these, and also I get to do cool fun projects like this. Now when I'm doing this, I like to first make sure that the space is going to work inside of here as I'm going around, and for this one I'm going to put it to the left hand side of each of these longer flowers that I have coming out of those main points. I like to turn my paper, and that way I always know where it's going to be versus trying to guess as I go around. The next thing I'm going to do is start to fill out more of the outside corners of these. So I always like to work from the middle out, and that way I can start to use bigger and take up more space as I go out from there. Now for this stamp, I'm going to use this on the bottom and also on the bottom left of this. And I'm just going to turn the stamp ever so slightly. And what I'm looking for here is I'm trying to take the inside of where these flowers are. There's a little bit of a curve there, and I'm using that as a gentle guide, and then that darker flower that's right there next to it, just to give myself a little bit of an angle inside of there. It's not exact science. This probably should be exact science in math, but for me it's not. It's just a good visual point. That way I know as I'm stamping around here what I'm looking for. And it helps give me general placement of where those stamps are too. All right, so this is really starting to get filled out now. The last detail I'm going to add is over in these open white spaces. Now, if you can't find a perfect larger stamp to use here, if you have smaller stamps, you can use those. So in this case, I'm going to use these two leaves here, lay them down, and I'm just going to put my acrylic block right on top, and that'll place it exactly how I wanted it. I'm going to use the one in the bottom corner, just line it up to that bottom square angle that I have here. And that's going to be the visual point that I'm going to use to try to make sure that I'm mirroring this or mimicking it in the right way all the way around. Now that I've finished this whole thing out for where it is, I'm just going to clean off my stamps and move everything out to the side. And then what I'm going to do is cut it over on the right hand side, because I want this to be a nice perfect square. The last step is, after all of your ink dries, is to erase the pencil. Now I'm using the VersaFine ink, and there's nothing on here that says how long I should let it dry, but I'm usually giving it about 5 minutes or so before I erase it. I've also been told that you can use a hot hair dryer or a heating tool, and that should also dry the ink a little bit faster. If you try to erase too fast after you stamp, you have the possibility of streaking the ink if it's not fully dry, or your hand can also pick it up as well. Now, the last thing I'm going to do here is actually take this inside of a new app that I just found out about called Pigment. What's so cool about this app is you can actually take a picture of this stamp after you've done it, and what it will do is import it into the program, but take out the extra white space that you have so that you can create your own coloring page. You could also take this inside of Procreate and erase all of the extra white that's inside of here, but I thought this was just super cool. You take a snapshot and then you crop it to the size of the image that you have. And then when you hit next, it gives you 3 options for it. You can go with original, which kind of has the paper texture, light, which is removing it just slightly, and then bold, which completely takes out the white and brings out the black color here. And then here's the coolest part. When you color inside the lines, it holds it inside the line, so you don't go outside of it as you're coloring inside of here. I thought this was just super awesome. Now I get to color inside of here without any of the guilt of potentially messing this up, and I'm so excited about that. I absolutely love setting this up with you today. I hope that you learned some things as we've gone through this, and also I hope that you try this yourself too. If you don't have these stamps already available, but maybe you have some other ones, any stamps can be used. That's what I love about this, is it doesn't have to be any certain type, and the way that you express your own creativity doing this will be completely up to you. So I'm excited to try some other stamps myself outside of these florals. I have to take a look through my extra supplies that I have to make this happen, but I'll definitely be doing more of this in the future. If you want to check those out, you can check them out over on my Instagram, which is instagram.com/menwhobullet. I'd love to share more of my love for this with you, as well as all of my other hobbies too. It's what happens when you're a professional hobbyist. You always just pick up new things when you see cool things. Thanks again for hanging out, and I'll talk with you very soon. See ya.